They're watching you right now. Real-life horror you won't believe. The letter lay on the kitchen counter. Its words burned into Derek's mind. I see you've moved the chairs in the sunroom. The one on the left looks better closer to the window. Your children are beautiful. I can't wait to meet them. Derek froze as his wife, Laura, slowly sat down at the table, her face pale. Their kids were upstairs, giggling, playing a board game just a few hours after unpacking the last box. Someone somewhere could see them right now. Derek walked to the window, staring out at the dark street. Porch lights from the neighbors' homes glowed softly, but every shadow seemed alive. Then came the sound. A soft, slow knock on the glass of the front window. Laura gasped and grabbed Derek's arm. Derek's heart pounded so loudly he thought whoever was out there could hear it. He stepped forward, peering through the curtains. And that's when he saw it. A figure, standing perfectly still at the edge of their yard, just beyond the glow of the porch light. Its face was hidden in the dark, but he could feel its eyes locked on him. Before Derek could move, the figure raised its hand and pointed straight at the house. The room went silent. Even the kids had stopped laughing upstairs, as if they too could sense the presence outside. And then, everything went black. 3 weeks earlier, Derek and Laura had been full of excitement. They'd finally bought their dream house, a charming 6-bedroom home on Boulevard Street in the quiet town of Westfield, New Jersey. It was supposed to be a fresh start for their family, a peaceful place to raise their 3 children, Mia, Daniel, and little Sophie. The first time they pulled into the driveway, Laura had tears in her eyes. The house was perfect. Wide porch, big yard, and a neighborhood full of families. The kids ran through the grass while Derek and Laura took in the sight of their new home. Everything about it felt like a blessing. But the first letter came just 2 days later. Derek had been unpacking boxes when he found it in the mailbox. It was a plain white envelope with no return address. Just their names written in careful, old-fashioned handwriting. Inside, the message was short but strange. Dear new owners of 657 Boulevard, I have been put in charge of watching this house. My grandfather watched it in the 1920s. My father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within its walls? I am watching. Always. At first, Derek thought it was some sort of local joke. Maybe a neighbor trying to spook them. But as the days went on, more letters came. Each one stranger and darker. The second letter mentioned their children by name. It asked if they had found all the rooms yet, and if they planned to fill the house with young blood. That's when Derek went to the police. The officers were polite, but there wasn't much they could do. No fingerprints, no cameras that caught the person leaving the letters. Derek hired a private investigator, hoping to find out if someone in the neighborhood had a grudge or some twisted reason for scaring them. But then things got worse. Laura started hearing footsteps at night. Slow, creaking steps coming from the hallway outside their bedroom. Derek would get up and check, but every time the house was empty. One night, Mia woke them up crying, saying there was a man standing in the yard looking up at her window. Derek ran outside, but there was no one there. Just the empty street and the sound of wind through the trees. The family grew more and more uneasy, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. They began to suspect everyone around them. The neighbor across the street who always seemed to be outside smoking, the friendly couple next door who kept asking how they liked the house. Then came the night that changed everything. Laura had just put Sophie to bed when she noticed the curtains in the sunroom were slightly open. She was sure she'd closed them earlier. When she stepped closer, she saw something written in the dust of the window. 2 words: "Turn around." Her breath caught in her throat as she slowly turned toward the glass door leading to the yard. And there, standing just beyond the porch, was a shadowy figure. Laura's scream caught in her throat. The figure didn't move, just stood there, still as stone. "Derek!" she called, her voice breaking. Derek came running from the kitchen, saw her frozen by the window, and followed her terrified gaze. For a second he didn't breathe. Then he grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a fireplace poker, and yanked the door open. But the yard was empty. He ran down the steps, scanning the shadows, heart hammering. The grass was wet with dew and his shoes left dark prints. Whoever had been there had vanished, leaving nothing behind. No sound, no footprints he could see. Laura locked every door and window in the house while Derek circled the property twice, finally coming back inside, shaken and sweating. The kids were huddled together on the stairs, wide-eyed, asking what was going on. Nothing, Derek lied. Just a raccoon. But they all knew better. The next morning, another letter was waiting in the mailbox. I liked watching you last night. The house is alive when you are afraid. Can you feel it? The walls know your fear. I am closer than you think. That was the first time Laura cried in front of Derek. She wanted to pack up and leave immediately. But Derek insisted they couldn't just walk away from the house they'd worked so hard for. He doubled down, bought motion lights, installed cameras, even put a padlock on the basement door. For a few days things were quiet. Then the cameras started going offline. At first, Derek thought it was a technical glitch. But when he checked the footage, he noticed something terrifying. Each camera shut off one at a time, always in the same order, as if someone was walking past them just out of frame. That night, Derek stayed up late in the living room, waiting. Every creak of the house, every groan of the pipes set his nerves on edge. Around 2 a.m. he heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from the front porch. He grabbed the poker again and opened the door just in time to see a small object drop through the mail slot. It was a Polaroid photo. His blood ran cold when he turned it over. It was a picture of his children's bedroom, taken from inside the house. Derek's hands shook as he held the photo under the lamp. The picture was grainy but clear enough to see. Mia's bed, her stuffed animals lined up neatly along the pillow, the closet door slightly open. Someone had been inside their home. Laura clutched the kids close as Derek stormed through every room, opening closets, checking under beds, even searching the attic. The house was empty, but the air felt heavy, like someone had just left. The police came again, but there was little they could do. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints on the photo. You should consider staying somewhere else, the officer said quietly, glancing around the house. At least until we figure this out. But where would they go? Derek and Laura decided to sleep in shifts, one of them always awake while the other rested. The kids camped out in the living room, their sleeping bags spread across the floor. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the third night, around midnight, Laura heard something. A whisper. It was faint, just on the edge of hearing, coming through the slightly open window. She froze, listening. Mia! Laura's heart stopped. It was her daughter's name. She ran to the window and slammed it shut. Derek was up instantly, grabbing the flashlight and running outside barefoot. Again, no one. But as he turned to head back inside, his light caught something on the porch railing. A new letter. You are very good at staying awake. But the house needs you to rest. I will be patient. I am always patient. Laura begged Derek to leave the house that night. But Derek refused. He couldn't let this person win. The next morning, Derek called the private investigator again, demanding answers. The PI told him they'd been watching the house from a distance, but had never seen anyone approach, almost as if the stalker knew when they were being watched. That afternoon, Laura took the kids to her sister's house for the weekend. Derek insisted he'd stay behind to keep an eye on the property, determined to end this nightmare. For the first time in days, the house was completely silent. Derek sat in the dark living room, waiting. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Then, just after 2 a.m., he heard the front door creak. He reached for the poker, but froze when he realized he'd locked the door himself. Slow, deliberate footsteps moved across the hardwood floor toward him. And then a voice whispered from the shadows of the hallway. You shouldn't be here alone. Derek's blood turned to ice. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but it came from inside the house. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The footsteps stopped. Then came another sound, slow, deliberate breathing, just beyond the edge of the darkness. Derek lunged for the lamp and flicked it on. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the front door was wide open. Derek grabbed the poker and rushed forward, stepping onto the porch. The night was still, quiet, almost too quiet. Not even the crickets were chirping. Then he heard it, a soft laugh, coming from the direction of the yard. He spun, flashlight beam cutting through the dark, but saw nothing. Heart racing, he slammed the door shut, locked it, and backed into the living room. The house felt wrong, like someone had just walked through it and left behind their presence. When Laura called the next morning, Derek didn't tell her what happened. He didn't want to scare her more than she already was. But that night, while reviewing the security footage, Derek saw something that made his stomach twist. On one of the cameras, just before it cut out, he saw the shadow of a person standing in the hallway, watching him sleep. The figure never moved, just stood there for a full minute, then disappeared into the darkness right before the feed went dead. Derek showed the footage to the police, but they still had no leads. It was as if this person could vanish into thin air. Laura refused to bring the kids back until they were sure it was safe. Derek stayed one more night, determined to catch whoever it was. This time, he set up extra lights, stayed awake with a poker beside him, every muscle tense. At 3 a.m., the doorbell rang. Low, deliberate. Derek's breath caught in his chest. He stepped toward the door, every light in the house blazing, and yanked it open. No one was there. Just an envelope on the doormat. Hands shaking, Derek picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Check the basement. Derek's heart nearly stopped. He turned, eyes darting toward the basement door. It was closed, completely still. And then, from deep below the house, came the sound of footsteps. Derek's grip on the poker tightened until his knuckles turned white. The footsteps below were slow and heavy, one after the other, like someone taking their time climbing the stairs from the basement. He backed toward the kitchen, his breathing shallow. "Who's down there?" he called, his voice breaking. No answer. Only the sound of another step. And another. The basement door rattled once, softly, then went still. Derek grabbed his phone, ready to dial 911, but stopped. Whoever was down there might bolt if they heard the police coming. He wanted to catch them to end this nightmare. With shaking hands, he unlocked the basement door and slowly opened it. The air that rushed up was damp and cold, smelling of earth. The stairs were pitch black. He turned on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark, and slowly descended. Each step creaked under his weight, echoing through the silence. Halfway down he heard it, breathing. Close. Very close. The flashlight flickered once, then went out. The basement plunged into darkness. Derek's heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. He fumbled with the light, finally smacking it until it came back on. And that's when he saw them. A figure standing at the far end of the basement, just beyond the reach of the light. Watching, not moving. "Who are you?" Derek demanded, his voice shaking. The figure didn't speak. It just tilted its head, slowly, like it was curious. Then, in one sudden movement, it stepped forward, into the light. It was wearing a mask. A plain, featureless mask, pale white, with 2 black holes where the eyes should be. Derek stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. The figure stopped, standing perfectly still again. And then, from somewhere behind him, another voice spoke. "You shouldn't have come down here." Derek spun around, and saw a second figure standing at the top of the stairs, blocking his way out. For a moment he was frozen, trapped between them. Then the basement lights snapped on, flooding the room in harsh white glow. Derek's breath caught in his throat as he realized what he was seeing. Carved into the concrete walls all around him were dozens of